So hi everyone, welcome to the another talk, and another big initiative which is being taken by Sushant and Gene Fitletics. We're working on oral microbiome, and so we are going to talk very interesting stuff today. Why oral microbiome, uh, and we are kind of pioneer, in that trend. In terms of first time in the region we have started oral microbiome. So Sushant is going to talk more about it. So over to you, Sushant.
Okay,
How is
thank you,
that
sir.
equipment?
Thank you, sir. So, the exciting times we have nowadays, because I'll just a brief in terms of since the last 4 years when we started Gene Fitletics, right? So we have been on the mission of restoring human and planetary Earth, right? And thanks to technology now that we can do a lot of things which we were not able to do earlier, because human biology is itself is huge data, right? It's a huge molecular biological data which as a human brain we cannot decode it. So that's why we need an artificial brain. That's why we have a lot of these AI models coming up. And in the recent event which me and Rupender ji went last week, there were a lot of discussion on the role of AI in healthcare, right? And that's where
Right.
so I feel in terms of the data points from a microbiome perspective, still there's a lot of work to be done, right? Again, gut, we're talking of oral today, but again gut microbiome we don't have much data, right? But we're trying to build. That's what we are trying to build at Gene Frequency as well, right? So coming on to oral microbiome, again, we uh, we all know that we have microbes living at various parts inside our body, right?
Right.
Right from right from our mouth to our stomach, to our small intestine, to our large intestine, to skin, to vagina, everywhere, right? And largest colonization is in large intestine, that we know we have been discussing over it for last 4 years. I think number of other companies have also following a suit. They are trying to get into understanding gut microbiome, yeah, because it's really a complex subject, right, so as to speak. But
Yeah.
when we talk of oral microbiome, again, it's really second most diverse and colonized area inside our body after gut, right? So in our mouth, in our saliva, there are more than 770 species living, right? So we're talking species. There will be, it amounts to around 100 billion microbes, including strain levels, living inside our mouth, right? And again, these are it's really fascinating that we have microbes on our saliva, on our teeth, on our gums, on our tongue, tonsils, surface of mouth, above gum line, below gum line, everywhere. And every site inside our mouth has very unique microbiome community, right? So you may
Right.
not find the same community. And there are other places like, crevasse within the teeth, a lot of, microbes living there, right? And again, so we all think, dental care is only about our teeth or gums, right? If we have cavities, if we have some sort of, plague or plague, or if we are going for root canal, it's all about the mouth related issues or dental infections, right? But oral health, as I rightly mentioned, has oral health is much more than smile and fresh breath, right? So
Yeah.
the microbes living in our mouth actually extends the benefit or the harmful activities of these microbes extend to everywhere inside our body, right? So
Right.
right, so again, as I mentioned, it's 770 different species, 50 to 100 billion microbes, right? And it is, if you consider the digestive tube, right, we don't start digesting from the small intestine, or we start digesting from the mouth, right? So
Right.
so a lot of food we eat is actually mixed with the saliva, and it is pre-digested by a lot of microbes living in the saliva, right? And
Right.
then they pre-digest food, then they convert that food into certain metabolites or molecules. That molecules signals the gut, speaks with the gut, signals to other body organs and tells what is all coming, right? So for instance, let me give you an example, right? So if you are eating something sweet, right? So microbes send a chemical signal to the gut and to tell pancreas to start releasing insulin because they have encountered something sweet, right? And insulin certainly start releasing, so pancreas start releasing insulin, and then that's how we regulate our blood sugar. Well, that's how the metabolic activity takes place, right? But if we are taking a lot of artificial sweeteners, right? So your microbiome may encounter something sweet, but there's no glucose to metabolize. So there's a lot of insulin inside the blood because of the regular consumption of artificial sweeteners, and then we have the situation of artificial, insulin resistance, and that starts from the mouth, not exactly from the gut, because our digestive tube starts from the mouth, right?
Correct.
So again, if we talk of saliva, it's like an ocean inside our body, right? It is the objective of saliva is to keep us healthy. So in various ways, so saliva maintains our pH level. So for a lot of people who don't understand, pH level is potential for hydrogen. It is everywhere in
Yeah.
our mouth, in our gut, in our skin, everywhere. Uh, our body at various ways, there's a lot of acid inside our body, like stomach is full of stomach acid, right? And then and idea is to have a neutral pH level, which is nor more acidic nor more alkaline, so it has to be a mildly acidic, right? So
Yeah.
saliva does that job. So it maintains the pH level because high acidic environment is a breeding ground for pathogens, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of activities, they release a lot of molecules which protect us from harmful pathogens, right? Saliva give nutrients to to our microbes. For instance, like we know that microbes living beneath the soil also give nutrients to the soil, right? Similarly, saliva gives the nutrients to our microbes, right? It makes sure that these microbes are anchored to teeth, right? Because a lot of they live in our teeth as well, right? So as I shared earlier, or there's certain you know uh, these bacteria which are washed out by saliva so that it is swallowed elsewhere, right? And then again, there are a lot of protein in the saliva, like immunoglobulins, which also act as a protective layer, right? So eliminate these. These immunoglobulins actually they release antibodies and they stick to the pathogen. That's why immune system comes into action and they kill all the pathogens. So saliva has a very uh, important role to play in the overall health and even from a gut on oral microbiome perspective, right?
Correct.
So again,
So
yes, sir.
yeah, so I have an interesting question, and I was reading this, oral microbiome is very important even from the defense mechanism side. And, the microbes inside the oral cavity, along with the immune system cells, they make the kind of, first immune system against,
Mm.
invading pathogens
Yeah,
and all.
yeah.
So my question is but little different, So what is your take on, kiss or smooch, where there is exchange of microbiome, how do you look at that? I was reading and then I thought, I should be asking you this silly
Oh,
question.
that's an interesting question. Actually, every case you transfer 80 million microbes, right?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So if husband wife are kissing, so there is a sharing of microbiome, right? Even with the children, right?
Yeah.
Because you transfer 80 million microbes in one deep kiss, right? That's so there's a lot of these movement because that's what we tell. Because if we are living, so even not the kiss, even if you are living, you are working together with in an office, you get microbes from your colleagues because oral microbes
Mm.
are there, right? It is every time we breathe and we breathe from mouth or we breathe from nose, we have microbes on nose, esophagus, everywhere, right? So essentially we are exchanging microbes, right? So sometimes our health, which is driven by a microbiome, may not be impacted by our own microbiome, but may be impacted by people around us, right? So
Yeah.
again, yeah. So when you are kissing, probably you share around 80 million microbes, right? So that's a great question, uh, so again, this is the important thing. So there's always an oral gut love affair. We oral and microbes and gut microbes are called kissing cousins, right? Since you brought this question, so they are regarded as kissing cousins because you know uh, every milliliter of saliva has 140 million bacterial cells, right? And every day we swallow around 1 liter of saliva. It means every day 140 billion bacterial cells are moving from saliva to stomach to, gastrointestinal tract, even the gut, right? So a lot of bacteria. So if you see, there will be overlap of bacteria in oral and gut of around 45% bacterial overlap, right? Some bacteria which you find in gut, right? For instance, a harmful one, Physiobacterium nucleatum, right? Which is actually an oral microbiome, right? So I'll share a bit later, this is the bacteria which causes or colon cancer, right? But we'll share how so there is a real love story between oral and gut, right? Okay. So again, the structure or the architecture of the oral microbiome, right, is very, very similar to that of gut. There's some bit of differences. So, so if you see, like we know, 70% immune cell live on our gut lining, what we call is gut, right? Gut as a lymphatic tissue, right? Similarly, for oral, the oral also have its immune system, right? And again, that is what is called as MALT, which is, mucosal associated lymphatic tissue, right? And like gut, because gut also have a mucosal lining, which makes sure that, the bad things or the things, bad thing doesn't move in the bloodstream. So only thing moves is the byproducts of the microbial metabolism, which actually, can be good, can be bad, but it doesn't allow, food particles or bacterias, right, moving from the gut to bloodstream to the parts of the body. That's a thin layer, and that's what we call is, if that layer is broken, what we call is intestinal permeability or leaky gut, right? Similarly, in case of oral, there is a mucosal membrane, right? But it is much, much denser than that of gut, right? So it has a multiple layer of epithelial cells, right? Then, as I shared about saliva also have immunoglobulin. So it is again, it covers your mucosal lining. So there is a lot of barriers for the preventing the bad bugs to move, inside the bloodstream. So essentially, but it's again, it's porous, it's holes, right? So if there's a lot of inflammation, a lot of bad bugs, it can be due to, a lack of dental hygiene, maybe, consuming a lot of sugar, bad stuff, or artificial sweeteners, right? They can actually trigger a situation of leaky mouth, right? What we call it. So leaky mouths are, so if we have cracks in our on our gums, or on our lips, or probably there are some bleeding gums, right? It is an indication that you have a leaky mouth, right? And a lot of these bacteria, bad ones, right? So good ones are, the layer make sure is very smart, make sure that, good things and bacteria can move to in the bloodstream. For instance, it will surprise you to know, I think this I shared in my article in Times of India also, that, the blood pressure regulation is done by oral microbiome.
Oh, that's a revelation.
Right. So a lot of these foods which are high in nitrates, like beets, spinach, and a lot of these green vegetables, right? The microbes converts this nitrate into nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is said to relax your blood, blood vessels. So it helps in, regulating your blood pressure, even, and improving your heart health, right? So again, these all discussion will continue in the next episode, but for specific diseases, but that's how. So this malt, or malt, which is again an immune system, within the oral microbiome, plays a key role in maintaining our health, right? So essentially, malt acts as an headquarter, right? So all these immune cells, come there, take orders, go on, kill the pathogen. That's normal, because inflammation is not bad. Inflammation is something which is required, because you need to kill pathogen once and for all. Your good folks tells your immune system, or microbiome tells your immune system something is bad, and then immune cells gets into act. This malt is in sort of office where all these immune cells, immune soldiers comes and report, and they take the orders and they go and kill the pathogens. That's how it works, right? So the oral structure is very similar to the gut structure, right? Only the difference is that, the mucosal lining, or the gut, or the oral lining, is much more thicker than that of gut lining, but still, it is porous. So, situation of leaky mouth can create situations of, autoimmune disorders, cognitive health, it impact cognitive health, it impact, metabolic health. It even impact your
Hmm.
autoimmune disorders like arthritis. It can impact your heart health. Even certain bacteria can also create adverse pregnancy outcomes, right?
Yeah. So for the benefit of the audience, if somebody is coming, with a chronic disease or, a diabetes, so what would you recommend in terms of, will it be oral test microbiome or gut or both? So how do you go about it?
So, again, if you talk of type 2 diabetes, it's a multifactorial condition, right? So it can be oral microbiome, it can be, gut. So because of, it's all about, it's not about organisms, it's about the
Hmm.
metabolites being produced, right? So,
Hmm.
so this is the problem, we have seen a lot of companies will say, okay, you have bad bacteria, you have good bacteria. There's nothing called as good and bad bacteria, right? So two people would
Hmm.
have different organisms, but their
Hmm.
organism may be producing the same molecule, same chemical, which will be causing type 2 diabetes, right? So,
Hmm.
so I would generally recommend, people go for both, right? But as a matter of fact, we are launching this product in August, so we have oral is standalone. If someone wants to go for only oral because they think they have only dental issue or they have some heart issue, right? But I think, a lot of these, bacteria move from oral to gut as well, right? So ideally, if you want to solve a holistic picture of your health, you should go for a blended product of oral plus gut, right?
Yeah.
Because there are multiple molecules, right? We cannot assume that it's only because of oral or it's only because of gut, right? And that's the important part, because everyone is now promoting gut microbiome, even gut microbiome only the existence of bacteria. So we have to first focus on the functions. Second, to
Yeah.
focus on other areas also which may be triggering a lot of inflammation, right?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So next is again inflammation, right? So it's a biggest culprit. We know our immune system, we have innate immune system, which is already developed, and you have adaptive immune system, right? So
Hmm.
when we have a lot of bad bugs or bad metabolites or harmful metabolites being produced, right? There's a communication between the microbiome and your immune system, so dendritic cells, which is again an innate immune system cells, right? They
Hmm.
go and they could just go to the site, check out what is happening, whether there is a bad thing. Then they come back and come back to Malt, which is again the headquarter, and they report that
Hmm.
this something is bad. Then then comes your adaptive immune system, right? So adaptive is like it keeps on remembering when they encounter pathogens. So T and B cells launches an attack, right? So
Yeah.
again, so sometimes what happens is, so this is a good thing because they kill the pathogens. But when you have, so people who have cavities, gingivitis or gum diseases, what happens is, there's a lot of aggressive attack because there's a lot of pathogens and harmful metabolites. So these bacteria, these cells become furious and they start firing inside, right, inside your mouth, right? And then to some extent, your beneficial and commensal bacteria do good thing. They actually release or produce or stimulate the production of T regulatory cells, which somewhat neutralize the impact of T and B cells, right? But if you have a lot of imbalance in your oral microbiome, right? So these bacteria are not that active, or they are being suppressed by the good folks, right? So bad folks, sorry. So essentially, there's a whole lot of inflammation, and you start having cavities and gingivitis. You have periodontal disease, right? You start having sore gums, right? So,
Right.
so tooth decay and breaking of tooth, and this is all outcome of inflammation, right? And that's how we have a leaky mouth, right? So if a lot of inflammation, start doing holes or pores in your mucosal lining, you have a leaky mouth and you have leaky mouth. So a lot of these bacteria can move to different parts in the body, and then you can have autoimmune disorders, you can have health issues, you can have adverse pregnancy outcomes, you can have obesity, type 2 diabetes, even. So it has been found that, I'll tell you, so I'll speak about this in the next slide, that there are a lot of bacteria
Right.
which can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, go into brain and start doing Alzheimer's, right?
Hmm.
So in a recent research which came that, a lot of people who have Alzheimer's, right,
Hmm.
had
Hmm.
existence and presence of a bacteria which was doing harmful activities, which is called, we call it P. gingivalis, right? So P. gingivalis is causes dental infection, right? But if it moves to the brain, it can increase the chance of dementia.
Correct.
Right. So again, oral microbial dysbiosis, like we have a gut microbial dysbiosis. So there's a symbiose, right? So there's an imbalance, right? We oral microbiome confer all the health benefits, like I mentioned it produces nitric oxide, which is beneficial for your blood pressure. It produces short chain fatty acids, which helps you regulate your blood sugar response, right? So it is really helpful from the overall health and fitness, right? But if the pathogens start growing because of, for instance, I'll give you an example. I made a video yesterday on this, right? So toothpaste, right? We're talking of toothpaste, right? What is the criteria we see when we buy a toothpaste? Almost nothing. We see a brand.
No.
Vico, Vajanti, Colgate, and a lot of these toothpaste, right? But
Right.
almost 90% toothpaste have some ingredients which we call as SLS, right? Or artificial sweeteners like saccharin or aspartame, right? These are bad things, right? So these are one of the reasons why you can have, so SLS can cause hormonal imbalances. So it can impact, it is an
Yeah, because it's a detergent, sodium lauryl sulfate is actually a detergent.
yeah. So it actually triggers it. It is an endocrine disruptor, right? It also depletes your oral microbial diversity. Plus, artificial sweetener like saccharin and aspartame actually makes your pancreas, the microbiome makes your microbiome and gut together makes your pancreas release insulin, and there's a lot of insulin, as I shared, and then there's nothing to consume. There's no glucose to metabolize, since there is no artificial sweetener doesn't have glucose or calories. So you end up having insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, right? So essentially these bad bugs inside the mouth can release harmful things which can trigger a lot of diseases. For instance, when they start dominating the ecosystem, they start forming biofilms. So biofilms considered like caves inside the mouth, right? So they start living in caves, and so there's something what happens is, so quorum sensing, right? So they share the DNA, they protect each other, so that they and even the metabolites produced by some of the microbes is a food for other microbes. So they actually work together to grow. So they sometimes when they sometimes compete for food or resources, or sometimes they work together so that they ensure their survival, right? So that's how the biofilm. So it's very difficult, to kill these biofilms. And when you go to a dentist, they are actually, removing that biofilms, because there's a lot of bacteria living inside our teeth and everywhere, right? So, so these biofilms can lead to a lot of issues like gum disease, gingivitis, periodontitis, cavities, and even, it has been found that people who have gingivitis also develop irritable bowel diseases, and vice versa. So people who have IBD also have dry mouth, gingivitis, a lot of these things, right? So again, as I mentioned, if there's a leaky mouth, it can cause arthritis and a lot of autoimmune issues, right? So again, as we discussed about the gut microbiome, so some of these oral microbiome also, when they predigest the food, the molecules in food like sulfur, like polyamines, like fermented foods, they convert into byproducts such as H2S and ammonia, which has bad breath, right? So if you have bad breath, it's like, it's nothing about you or you not brushing your teeth, or, you eating something bad, or you're drinking something bad. It is more about, the bacteria is doing bad things inside your mouth, producing harmful, pro-inflammatory molecules or pro-inflammatory chemicals, right? So and 90% dental infection never have pains. So you never know whether what is the reason, right? So as I mentioned, some of the pathogens which are involved are Streptococcus mutans and P. gingivalis. P. gingivalis is something which causes gingivalis and periodontitis disease, right? So again, when we eat bad things, when we eat a lot of sugar, so sugar especially, what happens is, so sometimes doctor will say, "Acha, aap chini mat khao, kyunki aapko cavities ho jayenge," right? So what happens is, it is not about sugar. Sugar doesn't cause cavities, right? The oral microbiome eat sugar and convert into lactic acid, it increases the acidic level or acidic pH level in your mouth, and then you have tooth decay, you have, these plague and gum issues and a lot of these things, right?
Correct.
So it is all about, and then these bacteria start releasing LPS, lipopolysaccharide, which we know is the is also released by the gut microbiome, right? And is the one of the causes for type 2 diabetes as well, right?
Hmm.
And specifically P. gingivalis, as I mentioned, it can cross the blood-brain barrier and cause Alzheimer's
The
as well as
same
sleep
problem.
apnea issues, right?
True.
So these are the
My question would be,
yeah.
how someone will fix it, if somebody's having this issues and he does oral microbiome now, so how does he fixes it back, at least to some level,
Yeah. So there
gets
are
by.
multiple things here. One obviously is, we know nutrition is medicine. The same rule applies to oral microbiome. So we need to have the right nutrition choices, right? We
Hmm.
don't have to eat a lot of sugar. We don't have to eat a lot of processed food. Even, we have to see what oral microbes are there, what they are doing, what they are producing, whether if I'm going to eat broccoli or cabbage or spinach, is it going to cause bad breath, or it is going to trigger cavities or not, right? And
Hmm.
that is one aspect, right? Second is dental hygiene, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So you don't have to take too hard brushes, right? Sometimes we buy too much hard brushes, it impacts your gums and impacts your microbes. So it also can kill your microbes, right? So the
Hmm.
selection of the brush, selection of the toothpaste, as I mentioned, almost every toothpaste is full of lot of chemicals and artificial sweeteners, which can trigger, hormonal and the metabolic health. I made this video yesterday as well, right? So you have to
Hmm.
take care of nutrition, dental hygiene, how you brush, which brush you take, what toothpaste you are using, chewing of
Hmm.
your foods, right?
Hmm.
And one of the most important thing, don't use antiseptic mouthwashes. It is
Hmm.
going
Yeah.
to wipe off your bacteria, right?
Hmm.
It is going
Hmm.
to kill everything, and it is going to create an oral microbial dysbiosis. You will have cavities and a lot of
Hmm.
even uh, cognitive health issues and the heart issues, right? Because of that antiseptic mouthwash. So that's, don't buy all that, Listerine and all those.
Correct.
Don't want to name any brand, but don't buy any of the mouthwashes, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is something really, really important, right? So a lot of people, acid reflux impact 25% of the people in a month globally, if you see, right? And
Hmm.
acid reflux is obviously because not of excess acid, it is because of deficient acid, right? And then if you have an acid reflux issue, you have heartburn, right? You will mostly
Hmm.
end up having PPIs and Nexium, right? Now,
Hmm.
what these
Hmm.
Nexium, we know that we have discussed this earlier also, that Nexium kills all your stomach bacteria. Now, a lot of these bacteria from your mouth through your saliva reaches your gut, reaches your stomach, right?
Hmm.
And your
Hmm.
stomach does a beautiful job in killing these oral microbes, because sometimes bad bugs also goes, right, depending
Oh, yeah.
upon health of your oral microbiome, right? So if you don't
Hmm.
have stomach acid because of PPIs, or because of high methane gas production of SIBO, a lot of digestive issues where you don't have the right amount of hydrochloric acid inside your stomach. So probably, a lot of these bacteria, specifically this bacteria called Fusobacterium nucleatum, right? It goes to
Hmm.
your gut, start doing inflammation, right? And it start triggering colon cancer, right? So
Well,
Fusobacterium is one of the bacteria which causes colon cancer, right?
hmm. Hmm.
Right. So and even if you have gum diseases, cuts in mouth to decay, right? These all are the indication that your bad bugs are doing inflammation inside your body, and there's a higher chance of leaky mouth, and all these bacteria will start moving to other places in the body and start doing inflammation. So the oral
Absolutely.
microbiome may trigger, a lot of these metabolic and autoimmune disorders, right?
Correct. Correct.
So that's the first part which I wanted to discuss today, right? Uh, Next Tuesday we will discuss about, specifically about how oral microbiome trigger various diseases, right? Like
Hmm.
gingivitis, periodontal, and IBD, right? Type 2 diabetes and
Hmm.
heart disease, and even Alzheimer's, right? So we'll discuss, and in
Yeah.
between we are doing a webinar also for everyone, for all listeners here, right? We're doing a webinar 19th of July where we'll be talking about oral microbiome, gut microbiome, precision nutrition, right? We'll be talking about specific discussion on the mental health issues. We also have a doctor speaking about the, diagnostic test and why microbiome should be considered along with your, should be the starting point, not the diagnostic test should not be the starting point.
That would be really useful for, audience and patients, excellent. I think that the doctors speak about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, any questions, specific questions you have on the
Yeah,
oral?
so I have a last question, Sushant, so I know Gene Fretletics is taking a pioneer step, nobody else is doing oral microbiome.
Yeah.
India, I know. So what made you, think and start this uh, such a valuable tool?
Okay, my idea was to have the entire digital footprint of your body, right?
Hmm.
So we have microbes everywhere. Like we started with the gut microbiome, then we found that females suffer for a lot of issues like recurrent infections, gestational diabetes, type 2 diabetes, candida overgrowth, cancerous situations, PCOS, endometriosis, infertility issues, right? So we were actually missing, no one was targeting on the vaginal microbiome, so we started the vaginal microbiome as well, right?
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of issues in the mouth. What we have found that so I was researching about it and found that a lot of these people who have IBD have dry mouth, right? Again, dry mouth is because of a lot of acidity, acidic pH level, high acidic pH level, right? And then we found there are a lot of bacteria live there as well, right? So so how about not only just first thing is we are focusing functions, not diversity, right? Functions of the gut microbiome, function of the vaginal microbiome, now function of the oral microbiome. Now, going forward, we're going to see, okay, how these functions, the metabolites being released, how it is going to impact role various pro-inflammatory molecules like cytokines, chemokines production, TNF alpha, TLR receptors, and all that, and how it is going to change your genes expression, and ultimately, we'll have entire, picture of the entire health, entire body, right? Which is
Body, yeah.
a functional picture of entire body, which I don't think anyone is doing in India right now.
Yeah, so I think excellent points which you've covered, and particularly whom to kiss and whom not to kiss. What kind of toothpaste to use, what kind of mouthwash is good or bad. So all these important issues we have discussed in this episode today, and I'm looking forward to a lot of useful work moving together. So thank you so much, Sushant, for
Yes,
all
sir.
this.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.